Hey guys, and welcome to Beating the Press podcast, your weekly podcast where we talk all things football. If that's your type of thing, why not subscribe, comment, all that good stuff down below. As always, I am joined by my wonderful co-host Ty, and together we're going to be discussing the breaking news that's coming out of Everton this afternoon. They have finally decided to sack Frank Lampard. We'll also be discussing an eventful weekend in the Premier League. And as we're around about 19 games into the season, we have officially reached the halfway point. So we're going to be discussing our thoughts on the first half of the season and also probably revising a couple of our early season predictions. I know mine were way off. And stay tuned till the end of the podcast where we've got our one of our first giveaways of the season. It's going to be, I think it's going to be Prime, which is quite popular, I believe, amongst the kids and some adults that I've seen on the news. I think Ty's had to sell a kidney in order to get his hands on these. So yeah, we're going to be discussing all of that and more in this podcast. So, well, first, let me hand you over to Ty. Ty, how are you doing today? You all right?
I'm all right. I just want to apologise for everyone because when you introduced me, I put my hand up and I don't know what I was waving. I was like, because at work I'm on like webinars on, people introducing me like, hi, and you jump in. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, I've got no one here, it's just you. But yeah, no, I'm doing all right. You are right. I had to pull some moves to get hold of some prime because I know it's the absolute craze at the moment, isn't it? And
It is.
it is funny. I mean, I've got a blue colour and I've got a red colour. The one blue's quite. I mean,
Give us a preview. Give us a preview.
timing, isn't it? All right. Okay, this is it. Okay, this is for Everton.
Oh.
And my camera's gone.
We promise he does have it.
Yes,
Yeah, there we go. There we
that's
go.
the
You
red
back.
one. Okay, it's not like a different one. So it's two. So obviously, blue and red. Managed to get older when I was like, oh. And I was like, oh, buy a load, sell them. I was like, nah, it's not my game. Just here
Yeah.
to grow. We're here for the love of the game. So yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
that's a giveaway. We thought, well, what can we do? We did it. We had a giveaway before with fantasy football and stuff, and that was quite well received. So
Yeah,
we
it was.
thought we'd, once I got older, I said, I've got no intention of, selling them. Let's give away and make the kids happy. But no, apart from that, I'm all right. Weekend, Saturday afternoon, I was torn. I didn't know if that was a good result for us, but I think once the weekend's finished, it's a decent result.
It
So
is, yeah.
and it keeps us. I mean, we're still a long shot, but I think it gives us a chance in it just to make that top four.
And when he says we, he means Liverpool, for those of you who are first-time listeners.
Yeah, for the prime massive, yeah. So yeah, so I mean, I think let's get straight to it. We'll go to the Frank Lampard sacking. I mean, it's no surprise. Your thoughts on that news?
Well, it's fresh off the press, isn't it? It's like literally within the last hour or so. It's like so fresh that Everton haven't even announced it on their website yet, and that shows the level of incompetency I think that's going on at that club at the moment. I kind of feel like I think Frank was always against it. It doesn't matter who was in the job at the time; they were always going to have an uphill battle. And obviously he's bought the bullet. But the bullets, I've just read that he's been in the job for just under a year by 8 days. Now, he feels like he's been there almost a lifetime. Like, he's obviously kept them up right at the end of last season, and it was like a running theme that I think he stayed around about. He got them at 17th, and then they ended up finishing 17th, and there was like a bit of optimism at the end of the season because he kept them up, and then the roll into the next season. I always feel like you kind of take off from where you left off the previous season. Now, where they got a couple of wins at the end of the season, it was just because the other teams around them were poor. That they managed to actually stay up. So I just feel like they've continued this season. It doesn't help, that he lost his best players. I think, was it the right back? What was his name? He got sold to Villa.
Patterson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Patterson from Scotland, from
No,
Scotland.
sorry, the right back. Or is it
left
left
back?
back?
Digne, yeah.
Digne. Got rid of Digne. I think that was at the end of last season.
Rafa got rid of him, didn't he?
Yeah, and then Richarlison. They got rid of Richarlison. So they got rid of effectively two of their best players in a row, and never really replaced them. And then it got to Saturday, which was Saturday or Sunday, which was the El Sacico, as they were all calling it. It could have been Moyes, it could have been Lampard, but it turned out to be Lampard. And I just looked at the team sheet and the players that he brought on, because I didn't watch it. I watched it on Match of the Day, And he left players on the bench in the young lad, Anthony Gordon, Maupay, and he brought another player on late in the game. But he left like key attacking players on. So I'm thinking, as an Everton supporter, what is he actually doing? But, you know, I just think it was gone long before then. And I think, you know, I do feel kind of sorry for him, to be honest, because Moshiri came out about a week ago on TalkSport and he mentioned that, you know, he's got the backing of the board. And, you know, that's always the statement, the curse statement. And then 6 days later, you know, he's got the sack. So, you know, Everton are in massive trouble, and I don't see a way out of them. What about yourself? What do you think about the sacking?
I think it's well deserved. I think he's overstayed his welcome. I think he's had he's someone who has had longer than he should have done. It's almost like someone's got loads of credit in the bank. He's got fuck all. He kept him up last season, but he didn't do a huge amount. 17 to 17. You got rid of Rafa, and Rafa was, I mean, with all due respect, Rafa's a million times miles better than Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard's part of this. Is a manager who was treated very favourably by the media, and I'd say the Southern media that with that as well. He's not good enough to be a Premier League manager. I think his next step's got to be Championship, maybe even League One. But you know, will his ego prevent him from doing that? And so he's managing at that level. You look at Everton, you can go back and you say that, you know, his previous managers bought that. Previous managers, the recruitment's been horrendous for that. But yes, I agree to a certain extent. But the players that they have got are still good enough for them not to be where they are at this moment in time. And I don't care what anyone says. I just feel the balance in the team has just never been right. He's got players playing in positions that are it's just not their position. I mean, Alex Iwobi, with all due, is not a Premier League footballer, let's be honest. And for him to
probably
be playing,
been their best performer as well.
Yeah, and for him to be playing centre midfield, I think there's question marks to be had there. You've got Anthony Gordon, who you could have got rid of for 60 million, and now he can't get in the starting 11. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff going on. By the way, everyone, that's not a ghost behind. That's just Chris's partner passing him some. So yeah, she's made an appearance. So yeah, she's got a few more subscribers than us, hasn't she?
Just
a few. So no, I mean, if we look at it on the sort of, you know, we take a step back and you try and look at it sort of rationally. Everton, this has been brewing for a while. The issue now is who do you bring in next? You can't go. What Everton cannot do is go with the Hearts and bring in Duncan Ferguson or Wayne Rooney, because that's just not going to work. You've just got to, ultimately, what you've got to do now is get through to next season. I think the most sort of common sense manager is Sean Dyche. But I've just been hearing on Twitter, and I don't know if you have as well, is Marcelo Bielsa's the favourite with the bookies. Now, that would be the most Everton thing to do, just to go get him. It's like, you need to stay up. You need to get someone in with a bit more. I just think I mean, there's so many things wrong with it. But I just think if you look at the actual players they've got, regardless of the manager who's in charge, they're not like, there are 3 teams worse than them in the league. They're like mid-table. That's where they should be. But it's just like the balance hasn't been right. The way that they're playing hasn't been right. It just doesn't seem to be. He's brought players in defensively that, yeah, they're decent Premier League players, but you've got nothing going forward. And then Everton's problems, like, you can't score goals, but then now they're starting to leak goals as well.
I'm just going to ask you, they're in like a precarious, obviously, position at the moment. I think they're tied with Southampton at the bottom of the league, only by a goal difference. There is, 7-8 days left in the January transfer window. Moshiri's obviously going to want to keep him in the Premier League. Do they spend money and potentially go down, or do they start rebuilding for next year? And the reason, it's kind of twofold. I suppose if you're bringing in a Wayne Rooney or you're bringing in a Duncan Ferguson, you are essentially planning for, you know, you're planning for the Championship essentially. Or do they bring in someone a little bit more experienced and essentially try and keep them up with a bit of money?
I don't. I mean, who, like, they need some attacking players, but who are they going to get realistically? That's going to come into it, and it's like, and how's that going to be? And you don't want to make the same mistake you made in previous years. You're going to gamble with someone for 30-40 million. It don't work out, and then you're back to sort of square one, but with another 40 million worth of debt on your back. I just think what the players they've got there at the moment, yes. I mean, players like Neil Maupay, with all due respect, are not the answer. You got Calvert-Lewin, who just is so isolated at the moment. I think the formation, it's almost like they're playing 5-4-1, and they've been playing that for such a long time that they've got no support going forward. It's always, it's a bit of magic for Demarai Gray, or, someone coming from deep getting a goal. There's not, I mean, for me, Everton, you think about Everton, how they used to play, it used to be like 4-4-2, 4-5-1 or 4-3-3, and you get some, get weight, get the ball in the box. You've got Cavalier winners, you've got your midfield runners getting in the box, and it's a really hard, really high intensity way of playing football. And and going to Goodison Park was just like one of the worst stadiums to go to, worst grounds to go. Now it's the easy. You go in there, you're like thinking, Brighton can go there, we can play a bit of football here. You wouldn't get a chance to play football there. So I just think there's a bit of that missing as well. So there's quite a few. I think someone like Sean Dyche, I think will be a really good fit for them.
So let's assume they're not going to spend. You can't get anyone of any real quality for the last week of the transfer window. I think they would link with Dan Juma on a loan move. That'd be a decent sign, I reckon. But if I was, let's do a bit of role play. I am Mashiri. I'm coming to you as the biggest Everton fan going. With that in mind, with the fact that they're probably not going to sign anyone, and say, you Ty, right? Do we want someone like Wayne Rooney, Duncan Ferguson, both of them, and basically make get the fans on side and make Goodison Park what it was, like a hellhole for when fans actually come in and get that spirit going? Or do you want to bring in like a Roy Hodgson, Sean Dyche, and get that defence sorted?
I think not Roy Hodgson. I think you're being very unfair on Sean Dyche, putting him in the same bracket as Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, perhaps. But
I get what you're getting at. I get what you mean. I think Duncan Ferguson's had a go, hasn't he? He's just not good enough. You can't just be someone shouting and screaming in the sidelines and showing that passion. You've got to understand. You've got to be a manager. You've got to, you've got to have some experience at that level. Frank Lampard obviously fallen down there. I mean, I'm surprised he got the gig anyway. I mean, how he got the Chelsea manager's job, that's a different conversation. I think Wayne Rooney, at some point will become an Everton manager, because my mate who used to work at Derby said he was unbelievable, both as a manager, as a person, what he did for the club in and around there, getting people out of shit in terms of wages and stuff, and the amount of sort of point deductions he had to deal with as well. So he did brilliant work, at Derby. And I think somewhere down the line he will be an Everton manager, but you don't want to be thrown into a situation where it's a relegation dogfight and all the cards. So as an Everton fan, I'd probably say no, because there'd be two things that can happen. One, it could really kill Wayne Rooney. The second thing, that reputation and that adulation by the fans, it'll just get thrown by the wayside, just simply because of the situation that Everton are in at the moment. For me, I think someone like Sean Dyche coming in, really tightening them up. He's obviously got a few ex-Burnley players in there as well. And he likes the sort of core of British players. There's quite a few British players in there as well. So I think he'll be able to sort of get them. They've got to be really tough to play against at the moment, and trust our luck that they're going to get a new manager.
New manager bounce.
Giving that big attitude against Klopp. It's like getting the bin. Do you know what I mean? Get back to League One. So yeah, I as an Everton fan, you're asking me, I'd want Sean Dyche. I want my team.
Yeah.
The whole thing about building for the future. As a fan, you want your team to be either in the Champions League or stay in the Premier League, and we want that now. I don't want to be waiting a year. You never know. You end up in the Championship, you get forgotten about. Wayne Rooney, and there's no guarantee for success that Wayne Rooney and Dunk, if that's the dream team they want to go for, that they're going to bring them back up. So Sean Dyche, he's got that experience. So I think someone like that is the way forward. But the Marcelo Bielsa one for me, just to sort of throw back at you, I mean, that's just completely left field. But his favourite on with Sky Bet at the moment. How do you see that one going?
I see a proper attacking with about 8 players and getting hammered absolutely every game. I don't think he's got Bielsa's got enough time to implement the Bielsa way. Essentially, he can't be a bad manager because you've got the likes of Pep and all that singing his praises. We didn't see it so much at Leeds. Once he got into the Premier League, they were just gung ho, weren't they?
I think at Leeds he was very unlucky with the injuries as well.
Yeah. We were surprised he got sacked towards the end.
I mean, I've still got Leeds mates now who want him back as manager.
Because it's exciting football, isn't it? Yeah. He did play an exciting way, but I don't think he's got the time or the luxury to win over the Everton fans and keep them in the Premier League at the same time. I don't see that happening.
But Everton have got better players than Leeds have. So if he comes into that, there's a better chance of him getting that implemented into his way of playing. Do you know what I mean?
One thing I would say,
the thing is, they're not cut adrift. They're not like dead
Yeah.
and buried. Do you know what I mean? So a couple of wins are in mid-table, aren't they? So I think
Yeah.
I think we can say whatever they are, second or third from bottom. It sounds, it makes a headline, but in reality, the 2 wins away from mid-table.
Yeah, there's 3 points that separate Leicester in 14th to Southampton in 20th. But yeah, if I was Wayne Rooney, I'd stay well away from it because, the last thing that you want is to take over a club that's essentially you could take them down. You'd rather go in at the championship level and bring them back up more than anything. And then obviously it doesn't impact your reputation. But so moving on,
just before we do move on though, I'd like to know how many Everton fans thinking I think we got rid of Rafa way too early. And they'll never admit it. They'll never admit it. But they would not be in this mess if he was in charge. Okay, he went because of fan power and fan pressure. That is all it was. It wasn't, he had what he had. I mean, I think he got rid of Luca Dini, and that was it. He didn't really get anyone else, and he got a couple of loans in and stuff. But yeah, I think let's not. And it's interesting because West Ham, the other one we never talk about was David Moyes going back to West Ham. If I was Everton, I'd be throwing in a polite request to West Ham, can we speak to him? Because West Ham, I mean, if they were talking about that game as Moyes' last potential game and he getting sacked, you can't be that far away from getting sacked. I mean, if he's getting sacked, they've got to pay off compensation. You might as well go in there and get something from Everton for taking the manager. So I think Moyes going there will be a good fit, or Dyche. And then the other thing that was West Ham were, Rafa Benitez were West Ham's #1 priority, and I think he'd be brilliant there.
Yeah, a good little merry-go-round in that part of the world. Just one last question. What next for Frank? Do you think Scottish Premier League maybe, or?
I think he just needs to step away from manager. He's had 2 pretty good opportunities and he's spooned them both. He's not a Premier. I mean, he's not done anything. The only thing that he's really good at is speaking in front of a camera. I think the rest of the stuff, when it comes to it, you watch his team set up tactically, and you just think they're so open. He's playing 3-4-3, and it ends up being like 5-4-1, and there's no patterns of play. You watch him play, and it's like, well, what is it? And the players aren't awful. That team shouldn't be second from bottom. It's like you've not done anything. You're 17, you've started 17, you've finished 17, and that's seen a success. So, it's not like you've kept them up. They're no better than when you took over. And now they are where they are. And I think if he stayed, I think they had to get him, because if he stayed, they get relegated.
Yeah. So moving on to the big clash yesterday, Arsenal v Man United. Arsenal coming out 3-2 victors. Fair result, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. I tweeted on the thingy, didn't I? I tweeted yesterday saying if anything other than an Arsenal win, it would have been a travesty. I mean, I was hoping for a draw because it just keeps everyone sort of closer together, didn't it? But no, I mean, Man United were poor, weren't they? I mean, I think they had 2 or 3 shots. They had no attacking threat. You take Marcus Rashford out of that team, and it's really, really poor.
It was quite even the first half, I thought, maybe because Arsenal weren't on it as much.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Man United's equalising goal just came out of nowhere because you didn't see them scoring. I don't think they had an attacking threat, and you just thought when Arsenal scored first, I thought this was going to be 3 or 4. But then they've got that goal, and then Man United just seemed to have a habit of finding a goal out of the blue or just out of nowhere, just to sort of like cool the momentum of the other team, and that sort of rocked Arsenal a bit, I think. But then they came back out, and obviously, from there, I thought they were comfortably the better side and quite rightly won the game.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw in one of our WhatsApp groups, I was saying it reminded me of the old Arsenal, the way that when Alexis Sanchez was in his prime and they used to just pin teams back, and the Emirates was kind of a bit of a force, especially when the crowd get going and the crowd get behind them. Now it almost feels to me like our title winning season, but also for me, it feels like the Brendan Rodgers title season where we went flying ahead, and then slowly we kind of picked up a couple of injuries here and there. Man City managed to dwindle down. I think that will be the outcome, but they've hit 50 points, like halfway through the season now. Do you think there's any way that they can continue that kind of 100-point?
No, they don't continue that. They're obviously, I've got mates who are Arsenal fans, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just want top 4." I'm like, come on, I think your top 4's that's signed, sealed, and delivered. The title's another conversation. I just think Man City will. It's the second half of the season. It's generally when Man City kicked on, they go into overdrive.
And they've still got to play each other twice.
They've got to play each other, and at the moment it's easy, isn't it? There's not really any pressure. I think when you get to March and the games are coming thick and fast, and Arsenal in Europe as well, you've got Thursday, Sunday. Now what you made of? Do you know? And I just think they've not had any hiccups yet. It's when you have that hiccup and you have a loss, how do you recover? Can you go again? And then Man City just won the following game. You know what I mean? There's a lot to come yet, and this is a very young team that hasn't experienced that. And I think the biggest, this is going to sound mad to a lot of people, I think the biggest issue with Arsenal might have is the manager. I think he's too emotional. And I think to win a title, you've got to sort of show, I get the ranty rhythms, I think you've got to show that calmness in front of a camera, and you've got to show that calmness to your players. See Pep and Jurgen, they're generally quite calm, and they have been, even when they were neck and neck and like pressure on pressure, they were so calm. Can you imagine someone showing that emotion? Your players will pick up on that. So it's really important that's the bit that I think just might just it's all those small edges and small margins that make that huge bit of difference. I think that could be that could play a part. So it's important what you as a manager sort of show, and your players picking up from that.
It will be so impressive if they do manage to go on and win this. Like ridiculously impressive. I never saw this coming. I don't think anyone did. We can say, they look like a team. They look like they're doing well, but they've managed to actually win when we thought their most important player for me, Jesus, went out, and then Nketiah came along, and he hasn't been doing the same.
Has he got a better goal?
He has, but he obviously doesn't affect the game as much. But you think of Odegaard, honestly, that player is ridiculous, but that's all it takes. It takes one injury to a player like Odegaard to essentially change it. Maybe they've shown that they can cope without like a Jesus, but can they cope without like a big injury to him or one of the centre backs? But I like you think that Manchester City will kick on the second half of the season, but because there is such a long way to go, such a long way. So obviously at the beginning of the season we had Liverpool and Manchester City in the top two. So I think we're gonna safe to say that Manchester City and Arsenal are probably going to take that mantle. What about the rest? How do you see the best of the rest going along in the Champions League slots?
Yeah, I think Man City, Arsenal will end up first and second. I think the draws that Newcastle and Man United have had, it just gives a sniff to the teams below it. I think it'll be either them two. I think Liverpool and Chelsea. I mean, they're that far. You see the 10 points where they've got a game in hand, and that's 7 points in a game with half a season to go. The thing is with them two, they can't play as bad as that into the second half of the season. They're getting both teams will get injured players back. There's obviously Spurs. I think the Spurs have got bigger issues with Conte. I think he looks like he's leaving at the end in the summer, and he's not getting back from Daniel Levy. And I just don't feel. I think they've got a defence and a keeper that are just so susceptible to conceding goals. So I think, I don't think Spurs will get in there. So I think it'll be between those four, but I still think Liverpool have got and Chelsea have got enough to get back in it. The game on Saturday was a weird one. It felt like, and I think I messaged you as well, I think it felt like a League Cup type, just with the number of injuries. It was like a real reserve team fixture feel to it. But I thought Mudryk, when he came on, he showed some real flashes of brilliance. I was like, he's a player. You can see someone straight away. You've got him like at 100 million. You've got Anthony and that. You're like the worlds apart, aren't they? Do you know what I mean?
It gives you it gives you a bit of optimism as well. Yeah. If you think of a player like that is essentially, I know it's for money and what they can do, but he's essentially chosen Chelsea and 9th place over Arsenal. And if we do actually manage to slip out of these Champions League places, it may not necessarily be the end of the world for players.
No, I think the whole thing about being Champions League, it's very sort of, and it's not overrated, but I think it is over sensationalized, if that's a word.
Yeah.
You've got, how much you get for the Champions League? Premier League's where the money's at. You know what I mean? It's not like it's Champions League. As long as it's not like they're going to be out of the Champions League forever. So I think there's obviously, for me, Liverpool and Chelsea, I think both teams would agree on this. It's like if you don't get in the Champions League, you don't want to be in the Europa League. Just be out of Europe altogether. So you've got that clear run. Finish from Saturday to Saturday. You can plan your team and you can really rest your players and go for it. But the injuries coming back for both teams are going to be. So obviously you've got Diaz and Jota, who I think missed massively. Van Dijk coming back in as well. I think that's quite a biggie. You can tell the big difference. Even with Van Dijk playing, we obviously weren't great, but without him there, we look like Brendan Rodgers' defence. You know what I mean? And you can say that is how big an influence he has been in that team.
Well, we haven't got Brendan Rodgers' attack at the moment
no,
as well. The way
no,
that we're playing.
No, we don't. I think we've got players that are coming in. We've obviously got Cody Gakpo, who's. I mean, him and Darwin Núñez are very unfortunate that they've been thrown in. They've had to start from the get go because of the injuries we've had. Normally, Jurgen Klopp gets his players in. They've got like 4 or 5 months to bed in, but we don't have that luxury at the moment. So it's like you're fit, you're playing. There's players there. I think that obviously moving on. Like I think Ox is going. Naby Keita's just not. I mean, he's not for me. I think he needs to move on. I think Harvey Elliott's not quite ready to be playing first team football for us. If you look at that centre midfield, I think Stefan Bajcetic is a baller. I'm like, wow, we're lucky with him. But again, I think sometimes he needs bedding in. You can't just throw him in. It's like throwing players in the relegation battle when your team's not playing well. It's always tougher. It's like when your teams are playing well and putting the younger players in. That's a perfect environment. But I get that doesn't always happen. But then you flip back at Chelsea as well. The players injured, but they've got Reece James, Ben Chilwell, going to make a massive difference. Them coming in. They've got Fofana out as well, and you got Kovacic and you got Kante. You went through the team, both teams that had players available, unavailable. They were better players by a distance than the teams that were playing. So they're going to come back, and that'll obviously have an impact on it all. So I think both are going to make a real run for it. Whether they make it, I think there's a chance both could make it. Neither could make it, but we'll see.
There's going to be some very upset fans at the end of the season. Very upset. Newcastle, I've seen them over the next 5 games. They've got Liverpool, they've got Brighton, and they've also got Man City. So that's going to be quite testing for those. Just a quick word on Haaland already passing the record from last season.
He's ridiculous. I mean, I call him a robot, but we've got. It's interesting. We did say at the start, how many points more can Man City get with Haaland, and we were right because they can't get more goals. He's got more goals. He's got more goals, but I don't think we can say Man City are a better side because I genuinely don't think they are. They're obviously, it's like that Spain team that's playing the false nine. It's like, yeah, you can put an unbelievable striker there, but it messes up with the rest of the rhythm of the team and how you're playing. Now the 9 drops in, there's overloads in midfield, and that creates the space. There's all those little bits that you don't realise, and people just it's got 25 goals, but it's like you've got to think bigger.
We said it at the beginning of the season. They lose the element of control in the pitch by not having that false 9 like they did last season. They were able to pin teams back because they had that extra play. You think of Haaland, he has maybe 20 touches a game, whereas De Bruyne in a false 9 he'd be getting like 50, 60 touches. So Man City are trying to do other things that they're trying to bring on. Is it Lewis in the right back? Yeah, they're trying to push him on almost to like another centre midfielder, and then that's why they're essentially playing three centre backs all the time, so they can, when they're on the ball, they can play with 3 centre backs. So yeah, they're trying ways to accommodate him. Who knows whether that'll work by the end of the season?
I think the acid test for Man City is always going to be. I mean, if Haaland's a success, the question will be, have they won the Champions League? And that is it. You've bought Haaland to win the Champions League. If it doesn't, it's like, well, you've not really done much else, have you? You're not going to get as many points as you did last year. So yeah.
Quick question on the relegation. It's a quick one on who you think is going to go down at this stage of the season.
I think at the moment, the depends on Everton's recruit and who they get as manager, but I think Everton are probably favourites. And then it's any 2 from that 40 downwards. I literally couldn't pick it. I mean, everyone thought Forest were dead and buried, but they seem to have picked up, all the 50 players that they bought. They somehow managed to get some sort of cohesion going on it.
We had Bournemouth at the start of the season.
I think Bournemouth are going to go.
I think we get Southampton as well. We had the South Coast teams.
I don't think Nathan Jones is an improvement on Ralph Hasenhuttl. I think they had a better chance of staying up with Ralph Hasenhuttl in play. Sometimes I think you change for the sake of it when it's not necessarily the right thing to do. And I think Southampton fell into that trap.
In a word, most surprising team of the season so far, would it be Brighton, Arsenal?
Arsenal. I mean, no one saw that. I mean, I could say Liverpool as well the other way.
Yeah, true.
No one saw that happening. But we are where we are, and it's just it's just look forward to this end of the season. Hopefully, finish top 4.
So, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, we have got some goal dust. Do you want to show the viewers?
I'm just going to share this with all. You can do the talking, and so we've got 2 of these bad boys. I know the kids are absolutely mad for it.
Yeah, well, like I say, I bet there'll be people watching and they'll be like, yeah, I'll have them for me kid. So basically you just want to know what you need to do in order to stand a chance of winning those 2 bottles, which we will send out to you. You over the next 3 videos, we will be promoting those Prime bottles. All you've got to do is, in one of those videos, you need to like, comment, but you definitely need to be a subscriber. Now, we will check on the next 3 videos if you are a subscriber, if you have commented, and if you have liked the video. If you've done all of those 3 things on at least one of the videos, then we will be sending out the 2 bottles of Prime to you. How's that?
Absolutely perfect. It was better than I could have thought. You just nailed it. So really clear, concise instructions from Chris there. Like, subscribe, comment. You know, you can write anything you want. Ideally, you say, we've just watched the whole of the podcast. It was brilliant. Can't believe you've not been picked up by Sky Sports and BBC. It's an absolute travesty. That sort of stuff. Brilliant. Or you could just say, I'm commenting because I like Prime. And I want Prime.
You can do hashtag Prime. You haven't got to do anything like that. Yeah, but we would prefer it if you've done it by answering Ty's question of the day.
Yeah. So every time, what we do is every podcast will have a question of the day, which will come up at the end of the podcast, and it'll just be a question related to the stuff we've been talking about. So today's question of the day is, who has been the biggest flop of the season? So there's been quite a few new players we've had into the league this year, Premier League. Out of all of them, who do you think has been the biggest flop? Just comment below, let us know. We do respond to all the comments. I won't be responding to anyone just writing Prime, because I want to say thanks. If you respond to the football related comment, I will respond to it, or Chris will respond to it, because we've both got access to it. I will get back in touch with you. But yeah, so the question of the day: who's been the biggest flop of the season for you? And I'll put it to you first, Chris. What for you? Who do you think's been the biggest flop?
Liverpool.
Oh,
Liverpool.
I was thinking players. But yeah, that's fine.
No, I'll go with
perfect.
I will go with I'll go with Liverpool player Anthony. I actually started well, to be fair to him. That's just off the top of my head because he had a bad performance yesterday. I don't know about yourself. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's Anthony. I think he's got a massive pass, hasn't he? He's like 90 million and he's got like a huge pass. He's not really doing he does that little pirouette thing, and that's about it. I watched I put it on the thing yesterday. He just reminds me of the Nicolas Pepe. He's like one of those, he slows the attack down, but every time he comes down, there's a little roundy round thing, comes inside, and you're like, what are you doing? I mean, great. Yeah. He's left. You know, if the ball comes to him and sort of inside the box, and he can open his body, if he can finish. Like any competent left-footed player will be able to, regardless of sort of level. But the rest of the stuff, he's just so slow. He doesn't bring any energy to it. And I'd imagine when sort of Sancho gets back and gets any sort of fitness, it's like, yeah, in you go. But then it's like, I think we've got Anthony because they didn't have a left-footed right winger, did they? And that's the challenge for him.
He probably gets a pass because it's his first season.
We'll see. But yeah, no, I think the other biggest flop of the season for me is Everton as well. It's like Merseyside Central there, isn't it? But I think Everton has been really, really poor, but I think that's probably more Lampard than Everton, because they're not the second worst team in the league at all, but that's just my opinion.
Going off Ty's question of the day, I would also like to put in who do you think the next Everton manager should be? Particularly you Everton fans out there, that would be a great shout. So with all that being said, follow us, subscribe. Actually, we never ever plug our Twitter, but Ty's very, very funny on it, very to the point. So go over to Twitter, subscribe to our Twitter handle, obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment. If you do all that, you'll get a shot at the mighty Prime. Okay, guys? Anything to say, Ty?
No, that's it. You wrapped it up well. We'll call it a day. So if we do have any new viewers, please do continue. And if you like, the other thing is if there's any sort of constructive feedback, please let us know in the comments. You know, if we think we're talking absolute bullshit, let us know. If you think brilliant. If you want us to sort of discuss a future podcast on anything in particular, let us know down below, and we will sort of look to pencil that in the future.
Yeah, well said. But see you later, guys.
See you guys. Bye.